All right, it's recording now. All good. So is it Steely or Steele?
It's just still, just
Just
still, yeah. You
just
know,
Steele.
The English language full of unnecessary letters. You know what I mean? So my name is just another one of those. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's all over the dictionary. No different.
No different. No different. Well, thanks for being on, man. Like I
Yeah,
was telling you just a second ago, I saw your Instagram in like 2 seconds. I was like, this guy's rad, man. This whole thing that you're doing is so cool. And growing up playing golf, and I I I love the sport. It's awesome. I don't get to play it as much now. I got kids and I'm going all sorts of places, but um, there hasn't been anything marketing wise or promoting golf the way your site has. I've never seen it. Like some people may try, but yours is way more authentic. If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, man. And I just feel like you have all of these very genuine, like more urban personalities in every other sport. I mean, most other sports, and I just think that golf it's something that's missing in the sport. People that didn't necessarily like grow up traditionally in the game, but that came into it and like really love it. I just there have been no real advocates for the game in that way, and so I think that it was just it's just divine timing, I guess, man. Because I've been kind of doing the same thing for like the last 6 or 7 years, but I think that like COVID helped a lot, obviously like COVID helped the game just grow in general. And like I own a media business. And so I do like content creation for like small brands and athletes and things like that. And then when COVID happened, I got fired from all of those. Like I had like 6 people on retainer based contracts. And when COVID happened, they all let me go like within the same like 2 week span. And so I was just sitting around with nothing really to do. And I was like, man, what if I just started talking about golf from my perspective and just see if there's an appetite or audience for it? And it was. And I think that it was like it was scary for me because a lot of the people that I know in golf are so traditional and so like a lot of very conservative personalities that I interact with. I was like, man, if I just really like push the way I see the game out there, where people turn their back on me. That's what I was kind of afraid of when I first started, being more, intentional about framing the game the way that I frame it. But to my surprise, man, there's been a lot of like, warm reception from brands, from organizations, from different personalities, like within in and around the sport, athletes, and I'm just very thankful that people are open to like me being myself in the game and allowing me to still navigate it.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's wild that you just said you got fired from all that business. Like you have your media company, what it's called Hype Media, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I didn't know that's what you did with it. I thought you created it around this golf like influencer type of thing, but you like that's wild that COVID hit and a time when you think you would need more media marketing over the internet and it just all your customers just went away.
Yeah, man. Like, cause like I have a pretty small business, and it's me and one other person that I contract with, and I contract certain stuff out, but I mean it's pretty much like just me, right? And so I'm pretty much like I feel voids for people that have like a smaller C-suite, so you probably just got like a CMO or something, or maybe you a business owner that's trying to be marketing yourself and it's like, man, you got all of these voids in your strategy. I was just coming in and helping people fill those voids, whether it was like, the conception of ideas, whether it was like the strategy, whether it was actually creating the content and executing it, the distribution, the management, the analytics. So I was just like, wherever you were soft, like I was coming in to try to help. You know what I mean? But the problem with being a one-man show is that like if you the first man in, if you the last man in, you usually the first person out. You know what I'm saying? And so it was no love lost because people just didn't know. People were just cutting budgets left and right, just trying to like stay in business. So you understood when COVID first happened that a lot of these people, like I had a couple businesses that had brick and mortar locations, and they just completely closed. You know what I mean? So it's like we not, our doors not even open anymore. So they weren't trying to really spend money on anything. And then other businesses that were just trying to like reduce costs just to try to brace themselves for however long the drought was going to be. So it wasn't any love lost, and ultimately it was just a blessing for me. You know what I mean? Just to be freed up to really sit with myself and be like, man, I saw how that was the first time I really understood. I knew I was expendable, but that was the first time that you really felt it. You know what I mean? Like, man, like I'm really like not necessary to a lot of these businesses or to like people outside of myself. And it's like, why don't I just focus on being necessary to myself? You know what I mean? Like I got all of these skill sets. I know how to story tell. I understand content. I love golf. It's all that I'm doing. Like, why don't we just, and to be honest, man, like that first video, the very first video that I made, like the only reason that I made it was because I was posting a lot of stuff on like my stories about me playing golf in different places. And then my homies kept hitting me up like, man, take me to the golf course, take me to the golf course. And I was like, man, I just need to make a video so anybody that asks me, anybody that asked me to play golf, I can have them watch a video and they can understand what they need to know before we go out there. And that was the very first piece of content I made. It was like an 8-minute rant about me just saying like you gonna suck at golf for a long time. And it once that hit and went over well, I was like, wow, like people really got an appetite for this stuff, man. This is crazy. And since then it's been just off to the races, man.
Is that the first time that you went on camera yourself? Like when that happened and you switched over to doing this, is that the first time you had, like you've been doing stuff for other people and creating ideas for them, but never creating ideas for yourself?
Yeah, and I did some stuff before that, and it was like more around entrepreneurship. I'm a big like advocate for entrepreneurship, like at all stages. But I did some more like entrepreneurial things like that were outside of golf. And then we had a lot of like social unrest that was going on too. And I was like making a lot of stuff where I was talking about different social things that were going on. But like when some of that stuff kind of like, I'm not gonna say it died down, but when it wasn't like the focal point of like conversation, I really did get back to things that made me happy. And golf is something that made me happy. And so that was the first time that I used my platform just to talk about golf. You know what I mean? Like to be very intentional about speaking on this game. And it was great, man. And it's crazy because like all of the other stuff that I was talking about before, and I had only been doing it like since COVID started. So let's say the first time I said something about golf was probably in like October. I had just started speaking to the camera myself in like maybe like May or June or something like that. And so then by October, I was just talking about golf. And the dope thing about golf is that it allows me to, because it's such like a human and relationship sport, I get to talk about everything else still. You know what I mean? Like, but golf is just like, the golf course is the place where you can have all of these different types of conversations. So it was really like the perfect stage for like transparency about all things related to life,
Well, how did you get into the game in the first place?
Man, my dad is a Chicago police officer, so he retired back in like the early 2000s. But when I was born, my dad was kind of getting heavy in the golf, and I'm my only child, so we on the west side of Chicago. So him spending time with me instead of letting me rip and run the streets, and obviously him knowing what was out here, he like, man, you coming with me to the golf course. And you gonna ride around in the car with me, or you gonna walk with me, or whatever. And he started making me do that from like a pretty early age. And he really like, if I had kids, I don't know if I would force them into the game as hard as my dad did. But he really just like said, this is the only place you can go. And so I felt like the beginnings of my relationship with golf wasn't that strong because I didn't love it. I was just being forced to do it. And I always, like, I was a big basketball dude, so I just wanted to play basketball, like at the course and in the alleys with the people that was in the neighborhood. But my dad kept that to like, like he kept that from happening. You know what I mean? And so yeah, my dad forced me into it. I had a background in it, but I just didn't love it. And so I did play in high school. My dad, he wanted me to play in high school. And not to make my dad sound like a mean person or nothing like that, but he just understood the threats of, what was out there. And my dad was very like militant, you know what I mean? Like he was just like, don't talk back, don't. My bad. This cat is going crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, my cat was back there like, yeah, but he was just very, he was very militant, man, and he was just like, this is all you doing, and unless I was playing like organized basketball, then he would let me go other places, obviously, but I didn't really fall in love with the game until after I graduated college. So I played in high school. I quit right after high school was over, and then I didn't touch a golf club for like 6 or 7 years, right? And so then in college, I majored in civil engineering. And so then I got my first job as a civil engineer right out of college. And I realized in the first like 3 months that I hated engineering too, right? And so 6 months passed, and now I'm off my probation at my job, and they got these client outings that they letting people like, yo, if anybody in the office plays golf, they send in an email. Anybody in the office plays golf, you could go play in this outing. I'm like, yo, I know how to play golf. You know what I mean? So I like drive back home and pick up my golf club, my high school golf club, and I play in my first scramble. And it's probably back in like 2012, like 2012, 2013, around that time. And I play in my first scramble, man. And it's like, it was just like what I imagine crack addicts go through when the first time they hit something like that. I'm like, man, like, what is this game? This is crazy. I need this, you know what I mean? And it was like, ever since then, I was hooked, man. I was hooked. Like, I guess I needed to mature a little bit more. But I started to understand like how many parallels there were between golf and life, and like, it was just the game became so fulfilling, and it was just all about you, and everything that you did was a reflection of you, and like you had all of these circumstances and variables that if you didn't pay attention to one, a good shot could turn into a bad shot. You know what I mean? And it was I really started to kind of geek out on how informative and how like life oriented the game was. Not to mention I started to meet a lot more, cooler people. Like I started to meet the owners of these different engineering firms really fast. And it's like for me, being like an entry level, project engineer, to start, interacting with the owners of these companies just because they knew I could play golf. It was like, man, it's like a cheat code a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And yeah. But the thing that messed me up, man, was just that like I was working 10-hour days as an engineer, like 10, 12-hour days. And then as soon as I got off of work, I was driving straight to the driving range to try to beat the sun. And then as soon as I left on Friday, I'm trying to play as much golf as I can before I come back on Monday. And it was like, man, like I'm working all this time at this job that I don't really enjoy just so I could do the thing that I really enjoy in my off time. And I was like, is there any way for me to like flip that equation around a little bit, like just flip the scenario around? So like, quit my job, quit engineering back in like 2016, and was like, I'm gonna figure out a way to, be an entrepreneur and just like play as much golf as I want, right? Like, it's like I'm gonna go live the real American dream. You know what I mean? And yeah, I had saved up a little bit of money, and I found out the hard way that like, life not that sweet. You know what I mean? Like I had a couple ideas that I tried to get launched, and they were just looking back on them, just very terrible ideas that I wish people would have just told me. I should have sat down and thought through a little bit more. But you anxious, and you just I felt like I was like a raccoon backed into a corner, man. I was just trying to like claw my way out, like by any means necessary, you know. Uh, so I blow through all my savings in like 6 months. Like I'm broke, you know what I'm like, pretty much on my last leg. And I moved out to LA because I had an ex girlfriend situation out in LA and whatever the case is. So I might have had like I had like a little less than like 10 grand and moved to LA, and you know the rent prices in LA, like I'm pretty much gonna be flat broke in like 3 months, pretty much, right? And so I move out there and I get this job, man, at this golf place. Now look, I had just picked up a camera. Like this is 2016, 2017. I'm just now learning how to use a camera, but I'm good at like, yo, my bad, I got a phone call.
No, no worries.
I'm just I'm just now picking up the camera and and so like I'm not that good at stuff, but the stuff that I know how to do, I'm real good at, right? So I'm just trying to like bullshit my way into like a creative job in the golf space because I'm looking at golf. I'm like, yo, ain't nobody doing nothing creative in golf. You know what I mean? So I find this company out in LA and I sweet talk my way into getting a job. And they're like, look, man, like we definitely need some marketing help, but we don't know who you are. And they're like, man, we're gonna pay you minimum wage. Like if you come work for us for minimum wage to start, you know, we'll give you a chance. And I'm like, cool, because I like anything, like I'm about 2 days away from just selling off all my stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? But so I could get this job. It's this company called Urban Golf Performance. It's out in LA, man. They give me a job, and that's when I learned the power of golf, like for real, for real. Because here I am, I'm in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I don't know nobody out in LA. I don't have no friends out there. I don't know my way around. And just by joining this one company, it's like all of LA got opened up to me, like overnight. You know, I was playing like Brentwood Country Club, Wilshire Country Club, Riviera, like all this other stuff. And and I was like, man, like this game, I'm meeting celebrities like Derek Fisher, James Worthy, like Reggie Bush. You know, it was just it was crazy. Like I was just like, man, I'm like in a dream right now. You know what I'm saying? And from there, like I got my feet wet in LA. I meet this dude. So and then I started getting better using the camera to like do different golf marketing stuff there. I wound up leaving that company, meeting my first business partner who I started HIPE Media with. And this is like going into like 2018 now. And then from there, I just like off of that experience, I was like in the golf like content storytelling space. You know what I mean? And then, you know, that pretty much was holding me over up until COVID hit. And then that's what's got me here on this podcast with you, you know?
Well, I want to know what were some of the bad ideas if you want to share them. Like it's interesting to me
man,
because
like,
this is how it starts. Like, isn't this is how your journey started? Like you tried, failed, and then you hit.
Yeah, and I don't know if I hit yet, but I mean I'm trending in the right direction for sure, relatively speaking. But look, so when I first left, I was like, man, you know, like I was heavy into fitness, you know what I mean? And like I was doing like I did competitive long drive in like 2015.
Oh, sweet.
And I went down to the world final. Yeah, I went down to the world final. I used to beat the ball, but I mean, like when I was doing that, I couldn't even break 90 though. But so I go to the world long drive finals, and I'm like trying to be all healthy and fit and all about speed and all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, every time I go to the golf course, it's never really no good nutrition products to eat there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, I need to start a golf nutrition brand that like I'm gonna get all the golfers healthy. Like golfers gonna really start internalizing that they athletes. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be the person that really make this sink in. And this product, I called it the par bar. I'm like, the par bar is the thing that's gonna get people there. You know what I mean? And so it don't sound like a terrible idea, right? It was gonna be just like like a protein bar, but like specifically designed for golfers. You know, a little bit more protein with some carbs if you eat it on the course. So the thing that I didn't understand is that golfers really don't give a shit about being healthy. You know what I mean? Like golfers are really okay with just like, yo, like I want beer, and I want hot dogs, and that's golf. You know what I mean? And it's like it's only very few people, and they at the elite levels of the game that really care about nutrition. And even those people, they already got their thing. And it's like I didn't have no marketing dollars to like, dude. I was so naive. This is 20. This is 2016. I called Brooks Koepka's agent. I'm looking for like healthy PGA Tour players. And I'm like, man, if I could just get in touch with Brooks Koepka, you know what I mean? Like this is when Brooks Koepka was like, he was good, but he wasn't Brooks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hit Brooks' agent. I was like, man, I got this great product. I think it's gonna be a home run for Brooks. Da 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 da. And he was like, yeah, like and he said this way back then. He like Brooks is gonna be, he's gonna be a top 3 player in the world in a little while. For a product like yours, get it in my hand. I'll take a look at it, but it's probably gonna cost you about $100,000 a day to get Brooks. And I just hung up the phone right there. And that's when I realized that, like, maybe I'm a little bit in over my head as far as like how I'm trying to force traction around this product. And then I did a couple like very tacky photo shoots, bro. I was like on the golf course with my shirt off and like trying to do all this wild stuff. And there was no appetite for anything that I was doing at the time. I didn't understand marketing well enough. I didn't understand like product positioning well enough. I understand like the margins that I even had with the kitchen that I was using was terrible. Like, oh my God. Like looking back on that, dog, it was like I just wrote a book on how you blow through, a lot of money really fast, Then I tried to start an athletic apparel brand that was supposed to rival Nike. I put together these beautiful decks for it and everything, shot these like dope explainer videos and stuff like that. And every investor that I sat with and showed that to was like, yeah, this guy's out of his mind. Like, no way that this is gonna do what he says it's gonna do. These numbers don't make sense. My projections were just very, very optimistic. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just, looking back on it, like I wish I would have, taken some more time to give it a better shot out the gate. But looking at where I am now, I think that those experiences really like help ground me as far as understanding like, when I'm being a complete idiot and making no sense. Everybody needs to get like punched in the face like that. You know what I mean? Like everybody just needs to get told that like, yo, this is idiotic and it makes no sense and this is not gonna work. Please go do something else. I'm like, I'll show you. And no, I didn't show anybody anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what's cool about it is, and you are right, like when you throw some product out there, it's the most honest, vulnerable thing you can do. The market is going to tell you, the world is going to tell you whether your idea is good or it's not. You can't just like say it in a classroom or do whatever. It's going to tell you this is good or it's not good. And when it's not good, you have no livelihood.
Exactly. That's it, man. Like I didn't do no market research. I didn't do like so little diligence. I just like, no, this is gonna work. Like I believe in myself. Like, okay, all right. But it just very, very valuable experiences but that really got me a lot closer to the game. And like, even through those failures, like it's a couple people that I met while I was trying to like pitch them things and stuff. And that's ultimately how I wound up with the media business too, man. It's just because like I was really good at like storytelling around an idea, but the idea was just like trash. You know what I mean? But it was a good story that I told. And so because I was playing golf, I was able to get into like some like scenarios where I was able to pitch this to different people, like come by my office, I'll see what you got to say, send me whatever you got to send me. And they'd be like, man, I really like the stuff, but like I'm not gonna give you any money for this. But if you want to help, like, and talk to somebody in my marketing department, we would love to have you help us with the marketing side. And I was like, that's not why I'm here. Like, you a hater, you don't believe in my dream, go to hell, leave me alone. You're not who I thought you were. You know what I mean? But yeah, but some of those people, they still in my network, and I still talk to them regularly, and so it's no love lost. I was young and just trying trying to get lucky. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you made it. I mean, you went in a short period of time. You made it from just like being out of money and moving to LA in a place you didn't know to meeting some of like when you're telling Derek Fisher and Reggie Bush, like that era of athlete was just different. I mean, that's a special. That
Yeah,
was like
man.
that's awesome. You're saying that I hate the Lakers. That's awesome that you get to hang like
Yeah.
Derek Fisher's awesome. Like that whole thing, like that's super cool, man. And I think some of your tenacity, like who talks to PGA Tour professionals agents with their par bar, like you know what I mean? Like who just rings them up on the phone and goes,
Bro.
"Hey, check this out. I'm gonna make you a star with my par bar."
Yo, I was so confident too. I told my mentor at the time, he was telling me like, hey man, I don't think that you going about this the right way. I'm like, man, I got a call with Brooks Koepka agent. You don't even know the kind of stuff I'm about to get into right now. You don't even know what I'm about to take this to the next level. And yeah, I just, man, when I believe something though, I really believe it like with all my heart though. You know what I mean? Like I've always been one of those people like, man, if somebody could convince me the earth is flat, man, like I'm in. You know what I mean? Like I don't really half step when I believe something. So that's why I got to be careful who I listen to. You know, I'm trying to get better about making smarter friends. You know what I mean? But man, if you convince me of something, I'm gonna scream it at the top of my lungs. You know?
So I gotta know. I got like this is wild because you were talking to Brooks back then with that situation, and now you've in it. And when I was saying a small period of time, now your press credentials at the U.S. Open, right after everything's opening
Yeah,
up,
that
like
was crazy.
that's so wild. Like, and then you get to talk to Brooks as you're like your golf, like what you're doing, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, man. And I just like, Brooks, I haven't like met him officially yet, but I definitely got like a lot of admiration for how unapologetically he carries himself. And it's the crazy thing to me is just like I was like talking shit about the agent because I'm like Brooks, like he good, but he ain't gonna be that good. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm like, like we getting a little ahead of ourselves right now. You know what I mean? But no, just like for him to become everything that he's become to the game, man, I just like and for me to kind of go on that ride and go from being like way on the outside of the game to being that close to it, it is like you saying that just made me take a step back and really think about that. Like, man, that's kind of crazy because I didn't like I'm telling you that story and I haven't even put together the fact that like I'm that close to some of these players now. You know what I mean? It is really wild to think about like how like in a relatively short amount of time like everything just kind of changed, man. Yeah,
It's
that's crazy to think about. But
It is. It's wild. It's really wild, and I kind of want to know, like, so as a huge golf fan, and going through what you're going through, what's it like the first day there, like walking into the U.S. Open, where you get to go like interview people, talk to them, and put content out and make it. You know, you've got this pass. Like, what's it like when you get that acceptance, and then what's it like when you first, like the first day when you enter there?
yeah, man, it's just like all the whole thing was kind of surreal. Like the people at the USGA, they like very progressive, man. And it was refreshing for me because a lot of people told me that like the content that I was putting out was like a little too aggressive and that like a lot of governing bodies weren't gonna be accepting of that. You know what I mean? Like they was gonna be like, oh man, this got a little rough around the edges. You're a little too unpredictable. I don't know what he gonna say. Da 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 da. But like the USGA for them to welcome me with open arms, I was like, man, that's kind of a telltale sign that golf is headed in a different direction. You know what I mean? Good or bad, like it's headed in a different direction. Just the fact that they extended the invitation for me to like collaborate with them. You know what I mean? Underneath their brand umbrella. And so getting there was crazy. Like being inside the ropes and having credentials, like walking past all the players, like you still get these little butterfly feelings. Like I met Rory McIlroy though. Like that was a big one for me. Like huge Rory fan. You know what I mean? And like to go up to him and fist bump him, and like my business partner Wayne with Trap Golf, like he out there with these guys every day. So like he said, oh man, Rory know who we are. Like if you see Rory, you can go ahead and say what's up to him. And so I saw Rory and I'm like, hey man, you know, like me and Wayne, Trap Golf, he like, man, I love what you guys doing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, dog. Like this is absolutely insane. Like not just it. And then like I talked to other PJ Tour players like Charles Howard and hit me up before, or like it's a lot of really dope personalities on the PGA Tour, and being accepted by them, it just make you feel like you, I don't know, like just it make you feel like you on a different level within the game, man. Like it's like a different kind of validation, and it make me feel like way more comfortable being myself because like the players at the apex of the sport are rocking with you. You know what I mean? Like I got governing bodies that are just allowing me to come in and like they're like, man, give us some content ideas. Like, man, we should ask people about their style. They're like, all right, we love it. Go ahead, do it. Do what you want. I'm like, what? Do what I want. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's really just like a dream come true. It's not, I can't even say it's a dream come true because I didn't even dream that I would get opportunities like that. You know what I mean? Like you think about most people in the golf influence space, like, man, you get them some free clubs and you get them some balls and some tee times, and it's like, man, I made it. Like, can't tell me nothing. You know what I mean? But now I'm like over here getting invited to create at the U.S. Open, dog, at a major. And that's my first professional golf collaboration experience. And I just started doing this stuff like at the end of last year, and I'm at a major right now. You know what I mean? Like limited attendance, limited field, and I'm there inside the ropes. Or like, you know what I mean? Where all these like media bags. I'm like, what? This is crazy, y'all. That's the only way I could sum it up. But it's just the fact that like, you know, everybody that's listening to this is like, but they the reason though, you know what I mean? Like everybody that push like, that share something, you know what I mean? I'm always taking like the humble approach to it because like I can't just put content out and say that I'm great. Like it only works if like the market decides that like they like my product, right? Just like we were talking about with the other business ideas. So like all these people saying like, man, you doing great, like you doing dope stuff, and it's like y'all the people that's making it dope. Like I really don't have any control over that, especially in my shoes, right? Like there's no advantage to elevating me as a personality without your eyeballs. Like y'all are the only reason that this is even viable to even experiment with, you know? So it's like this podcast is the reason that like, you know what I mean? Like it's just crazy. This is the most supported I've felt being myself in like my entire life, you know?
Well, yes. And I mean, I get what you're saying, and yes, the market does decide it. You know, it does decide, and you can't just sit there and say you're great because then it's going to be a turnoff to everybody on social media. But you
Yeah.
do have to make stuff that people like. Like you have to connect with people, and that is not easy. Like if that was easy, this is one thing that I've figured out, especially from doing the podcast, and I've never done video editing before, and so I get on here and I try to edit my first ever video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Like it's so tedious, it's so difficult to edit and really do a good job. Like make it look like you want it, like what you see in your mind, what you want it to look like. And so I have a different respect for people who put in the hours and do things like that. But
Yeah.
if YouTube creators, like if the Paul brothers, they're big because like they've worked very hard at doing what they do. Like they get the attention and they say the things that people that bring attention on them. So you have to have a talent to be able to convey a message to somebody that's going to attract them to your page. There's no way of getting around that.
That's real. I mean, I do think that like for me, it like everything since I quit my engineering job been such a whirlwind. Like I was acquiring skills and I didn't even like recognize that it was happening. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like it still seems like that now. Like people say like what do you do? And I'm like, man, I don't really know. I mean, like I can do a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Yeah.
saying, it's crazy though. Like I was just talking. I was just doing this junior golf camp before we jumped on this podcast, and like some of the mothers had stopped me. They were like, "Man, what do you? So what do you do?" I'm like, I got an Instagram and like social media and content business. I'm trying to figure it out, but it's like for me, I guess the work haven't seemed that hard because I was just really like I was just doing anything that I could do to like stay afloat. You know what I mean? So like it wasn't like I had this very focused plan. Like I'm gonna be a dope video editor, content creator, personality guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just like, man, I want to play some golf and I'll need some money. Like, how can I make some businesses that get me some money? And I was just, or how can I work around things that let me play golf and give me money? I just been trying to solve this golf equation this whole time. And I just wind up acquiring skills along the way. But golf was the only thing that I really cared about the whole time. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of people would say, like, man, go try to play professional golf. Like, I'm like, but that's irresponsible. That's like me in the par bar thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, man, I was down there and I was down there and look, I was down there in Florida. So when I first quit my job, I moved down to Orlando, and that's why I was gonna launch the par bar. That was a good idea though, going down to Orlando, because I got to spend a lot of time around a lot of like aspiring professional players, and I was like, man, like it's a lot of talent in the game of golf, and just to see the level of player that would still struggle, I'm like, man, it's a little discouraging for like, I'm up here in the Midwest in Chicago. Like I'm probably like, I'm not gonna, in the actual city of Chicago, I'm probably like one of the top 10 players like in the city of Chicago. Like in the city, in the parameter of Chicago, the border of Chicago, I bet you I'm probably like top 10 players. But if I go down to Orlando, like, I'm like, man, like, I'm like trash. You know what I mean? So it's just, that was never, even though I have a lot of confidence in people that when they put their minds to things, they can do things. It's like, I'll always, like my early entrepreneurial failures taught me to like, let's be a little bit more realistic with how you can allocate your time and like really get the results that you want. And I just always thought that like entrepreneurship was the best way to do it. But it's just so interesting to me that this whole journey has been about how do I figure out a solution for playing more golf whenever I want to, and what do I need to learn to get me past this next hurdle and this next hurdle. Like I picked up my first camera and I started learning how to use Adobe Illustrator so I could put pitch decks together and stuff, right? And then I started learning, I get a camera and I started learning how to take pictures to put in those pitch decks. And then people say they need to see explainer videos. And so I start hitting the record button on my Sony, and now I'm recording videos, and now I'm using iMovie. And then people say, oh, like, but could you edit it like this? And so then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to get a bigger software. So then I get into like the Premiere Pro and I start editing there. And then people saying like, oh, could you do sports stuff? And then I go and buy my first little gimbal thing, and I'm running around with a gimbal. And then people say like, oh, but can you do audio? Like, and then I go buy a microphone, and I'm like, okay, now I can do interviews with the sports stuff. And it's like all of that stuff just came from like, yo, I need to make some money, and this person needs something that I can't do. You got drones. Like I remember my first time flying a drone. Like I landed this project, and they said, man, if you have a drone, this would be great. And I was in LA at the time, and I'm like, man, like I'm gonna just go buy a drone, and I flew it around outside of my apartment for like 30 minutes the night before, and then I showed up to the job, and I'm like, yeah, I got the drone. Yeah, I fly drones. You know what I mean? And it's just like that's been my whole, like that's been the last like 5 years of my life. It's just like somebody say they need something and figuring it out, because I think this gonna get me closer to not having to worry about paying for golf.
Did it ever ding your confidence at all? Like, because you just go for it. I can tell you just go for it. Like Obviously, that last conversation,
Yeah.
you're just going for it. Like, you need a drone? I got a drone. Yeah, I can fly it. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, you're just gonna go for it, right? The par bar, all the whole story, like
Yeah.
everything, the athletic apparel. Like, you're confident. You're gonna go for it. Does it ever ding your confidence at all? Like, do you ever get down whenever your ideas failed? Like, whenever those ideas in the past failed, did it ever get you down moving forward?
No, I don't, and I think that the reason is like I'm just the type of person, and this is something that we also learned through playing golf, right? It's like it's always about the next shot, and so like I'm busy. Like I know I just snap hooked it into the woods, but it's like man, but I do got this little window right here. Like so, if I could just hit this little 10 foot high cut around this tree, like I could probably get on the green somehow. And even if that one failed, it's like, okay, well, I just took a triple bogey, but this is a birdie hole coming up. So it's like my whole thing is just like the next shot is always going to be more important than the last one. And so I just like a lot of times, because it's like a weird process realizing that you have a bad idea that's probably not going to work, right? Because it's never just like this moment. It's not this one moment or something like that. It's like this process of you letting go of it slowly and you moving into something else slowly. And then you get far enough away from the old idea where you're like, hey, that's probably not the right way because you probably got something new that you're focusing on, right? You know what I mean? And so I never really like internalized that I had bad ideas, especially because you start to like the more business people I spend time around, it's like hedge funds, for instance, right? Or like, or not like hedge funds, or like, like private equity, people, or like venture capitalists or whatever. Like they live and die off of like the one or two things that have like, a million X return, and the rest of the stuff they either like break even on or lose money on. And it's like, but you got to get the shots up if you want to win. And like I just reconciled early that like, yo, like just like with golf, just like with anything that we do in life, it's a very high probability that you're gonna suck for a long time. Like you're gonna be trash at anything you try. You're gonna be trash for a long time. And success usually comes to the people that can just like take all of those punches. You know what I mean? And it sounds so cliche because you hear it so often. But like if you told somebody that was just getting started with something, like, and that's what golf is so important. Like if I told somebody that was just getting started with something, like, bro, it's gonna take you a legit 10 years, no matter how hard you work, it's gonna take you 10 years to get good at this. You know what I mean? And like if you work your ass off, it might be 9 years. But it's gonna take you a long time to get good at this. Are you willing to like go that hard for that long and like suck for 10 years? Because that's what you gotta be willing to do pretty much anything on your own, unless you want to go get a regular job. You know what I mean? And like unless you want to do something that pays you every 2 weeks. And like I can't remember the last time that I had a guarantee. I don't even know what it's like to have guaranteed income. Like I don't even understand that concept. Like my girl, she got a job that pay her every 2 weeks, and it's like, man, that's like dope. It's like foreign to me. Like, oh, I get paid tomorrow. I'm like, what you get paid? How do you know? Like, what happened? Like, did you close something? What did you do? It's like, no, I just get paid. And it's I just think that like I was so busy focusing on like what was next that like I didn't really let the failures like eat at me too much, because everybody losing at something, man. Like everybody sucked. And I was out in LA, and like people were like people say they own a business, and then you come to find out that like the business is being stood up by their like grandfathers and by some inheritance that they had, and like the business isn't profitable, and they paying to put themselves in all these magazines, and they got these huge marketing budgets, but nobody's buying it. And it's like, I'm like, man, but these are the people that we praise, like, oh, he got it figured out. And it's like, no, he gonna be out of business in 3 years. Like it's only a matter of time before he realizes he can't just, like cash flow this business into success. You know what I'm saying? And so I just stopped measuring. Like I never compared myself to other people. Like they success is they success, mine is mine. Like my pace is my pace, and whenever it's gonna happen for me, that's when it's gonna happen. And it's not, my boys like they all buying these houses and taking these expensive vacations places, and I'm not because it's like I don't have that luxury because I don't know when I'm gonna get paid again. You know what I mean? But it's just a life that I chose, and this is I feel is pushing me closer to the goals that I have for myself.
Did your dad teach you that on the golf course about the shots? Like when you were out there hanging with your dad, did he teach you those things about looking at the next shot, like not to get upset about this bad shot, but to go up there and figure out the next one?
Nah, my dad wasn't like he didn't intellectualize the game to me. Like that was something that I learned when I came back to the game, like on my own terms. And like everybody like gotta fall in love with golf like on their own. Like you can't really force somebody to love golf. You know what I mean? And I was an adult when I started to realize some of those things. And I had kind of dealt with like different failures like in college and stuff like that, like wanting to switch majors and then, like going through different things socially with like the fraternity that I was in and just different things. Like it just kind of it kind of pushed my mind in that direction. And then when I came to golf, it was just like the perfect parallel for like everything that I had been feeling. Like it was like the perfect outlet. Like like in theory, if you do it right, you can hit the perfect shot every single time. Like if you just move your body in the right ways, like you can make this ball go exactly where you want it to go every time. But if you don't calculate the wind correctly, and if you don't calculate the lie correctly, and if you don't, read the lie, appropriately, and if you, hit the wrong shot shape into the wrong part of the green, and if it's a little long or short, that shot that you thought was good, even though you made that perfect move, like it could end up very bad for you. You know what I mean? And then you just started to accept it, like there were no guarantees. Like one of my boys, like I went to U of I for college, and one of my frat brothers, we had just graduated, and we went back for a party that weekend. And we were both like muscular dudes and stuff, so we would always work security at the party. And so then I go back to the party. We doing security. It's a big weekend down at U of I. A lot of people are there from out of town. But then I had like this, this situation. I was dating somebody at the time, and they was like, "Oh, could you just make sure that you leave the party by this time?" And I was like, "All right." So it was like 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So I look down at my watch, and it's like a minute before that. And I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna see y'all later." I leave, and so then I shake everybody's hand. And so by the time I get to her house, I get a phone call. Her house was like 5 minutes away from where the party was. I get a phone call, and then they said somebody just shot in the party, and my frat brother had got shot. Me and the dude that was working security at the frat party got shot. And so I was I speed back there, and sure enough, dude, as soon as I left that party, a fight broke out. And this football player beat up this dude that was from Chicago. The dude from Chicago ran out to his car, got his gun, came around the back of the house and just shot 9 times into the crowd. Like we had like 200 people in there, and one of the people that got shot was my frat brother that I was working security with. So I'm over there thinking like, man, like I would have been in that same vicinity as him if that would have happened, because we would have both been, seeing like trying to control the environment. And then so he gets shot, it goes through his jaw, out his spine, paralyzed from the neck down. And this is like in 2000, this is like 2012 that this happened. And so I'm like me and him did everything right up until that point. Like we both went to a good college. We both graduated. We both had majors that we were, gonna make some money doing, and we was both starting our career, and we both back down here trying to help out the younger members of our fraternity. We did everything right. We on a college campus. You know what I'm saying? We did every single thing right, and this happened. You know what I'm saying? And so, and now I'm getting into golf, and it's like helping me understand that, like, bro, you could do every single thing right, and it still not go right, And that just even though that was a very traumatic experience for me and for a lot of people, obviously, like especially him. But golf really like helped me understand like life a lot better and make sense of life a lot better. And I think that it was like, you know, I had other like tragedies happen like that. That golf, I really leaned into golf to help me make sense of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes. I
I
mean,
know
it
that was
does.
kind of heavy, but it was like, yeah,
That is that's a crazy story, man. Like, just you, the
yeah.
circumstances of you, like, okay, I'm gonna leave at this time, and you left, and that's something that's wild. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what
Like
caused
some
you?
Final Destination type stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know somebody was telling you that you cared about was telling you like, hey, you need to leave the party by this time. But I mean, when you're in that situation, like what really draws you out at that, like her saying that, you know, you getting out at that exact time basically kept you away from that situation. It's a wild thing to think about in
Like
general.
just
But
think about like if I went to like the bathroom or if I like got sucked into like a super, you know, like a riveting conversation or something like that, or like if any other circumstances, like if I would have just stayed for like maybe another 45 seconds, like the situation would have unfolded. And I was in my car driving away from it. And I'm like, man, that is like insane. And then all like three other people got shot that day. All of them U of I students or like alumni. And it's like all these people have made good decisions up until this point. And it's like that's what happened. They like landed in divots and they on like in the middle of the fairway, or they like you know caught the last limb of a tree and it, you know what I mean, or it like spun too much and it came off into the water. It's like crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
and then what do you do? Like I love your analogy about it though. Like the way you've been like drawn it into golf that way is that you know yeah your ball lands in a divot. Now what are you gonna do? Like what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You've got to learn how to deal.
yeah,
As
man.
long as you're still breathing and walking around, like you know, appreciating life, like that. You telling me that story gives you appreciation for just your life in general. Like that could have I could have been in that situation. So now, whenever I make the par bar and it fails, what am I going to do now? Like I'm still breathing. I can still do something. Like I still got something that I can do. I can
Yeah,
still go sell something. I can still succeed. I can still hit the next shot better on the golf course because like I'm here.
yeah. And then you think about it too. Like I lose. Say I go to LA and it don't work, and you know that company won't hire me. Then what you do? Like you go move back in with your parents and you get a job and you lick your wounds and you save your money and you do it all over again. And it's like the equivalent of you just taking your medicine, right? Like I gotta punch out straight sideways. And then I gotta just get the ball on the green and let me just roll in these two putts and let me just try to figure out in the next hole. All right, can I get one in the fairway? All right, I'm in. Can I hit a green? Like, okay, I'm on the green. Can I get a couple pars in there? Okay, like now I got my momentum back going. Now we can kind of step on the gas again. You know what I mean? It's just like like you never out of the game. As long as you still playing, though, you never out of the game. You know what I mean? And so like it's birdies to be had, and it's all types of just like it's bad breaks, it's real good ones. You catch it a little thin, and it hopping, and you hold out on accident. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? It's just all types of stuff. You hit it like you know close to a hazard, and it hit a rock and bounce back in play. Like it's just life is just crazy, man. And you all you got to do is like treat every day like his own shot, and you step over it with intention, and you try to put your best swing on it. And as long as it was your best swing and you committed, you live with the consequences, you know. But a lot of people just like I feel like they second guess themselves so much that they don't even know like what they're capable of. And that's what I'm kind of most proud of myself for is that like I ain't gonna second guess nothing. Like I'm gonna just do it. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be all in and I'm gonna learn everything that I can learn from this. And fortunately enough for me, nothing's like took me out the game yet. You know what I mean? Like I made a lot of double bogeys, but like I'm still kind of in the thick of things. You know what I mean? And it's another round tomorrow type stuff. So that's but if you never like really step up and commit, Like you just don't know what you're capable of. You know what I mean? Like the you can only really learn the truth. That's why I love like playing competitive golf so much, because you just can't hide from yourself when you're in competition. Like you really can't hide from yourself. You know what I mean? When I'm hanging with my boys, like I'm just playing around, all relaxed and stuff. Like I kind of like slap it around. I don't really have that much pressure on me and stuff. But when you're in competition and you really have to hit the shot, and you got OB left and right, like you really gotta hit a shot. You gotta like try, and you have to do what you say you're gonna do. And if you cower out, you're gonna lose a ball, you're gonna hit it OB, and then the wheels gonna start falling off. And it's like, man, like that's what you figure out. That's how you figure out what you made of, though. You like step up and you try to do something, and you try your hardest to do something. And a lot of people never do that. They never do that. Like they never approach anything with full conviction and full intention, and like are willing to accept the outcome, you know?
I love what you said. I like it's something that I believe wholeheartedly, and I have respect for anybody who takes a step onto the competition floor, whatever they're doing. Like whatever it is they're doing, if they take a step onto a competition floor, they're exposing their strengths and weaknesses, and they're putting them to the test against that. Like they're measuring it for real. It's
Yeah,
real, and you can
yeah,
embarrass
it's real.
yourself, and your ego can get shot down. And but there's nowhere to hide. Like you said, there is nowhere to hide. Like you go competitive,
Or you could
and
quit. You
yep.
could quit.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, dude. I love it, and you're right. A lot of people don't go there, and I hear a lot of people talk and analyze people that failed in those situations, and they talk about it even on a small level. Like they talk about it, I'm like, you know what? That dude did it. Like he did it. Where are you at? You're not doing it. Like you didn't do
Right,
anything. He stepped
right,
up. You didn't, and so he has more
right,
respect, no doubt.
right, man. Right. 100%, man.
So what's
Yeah, it's
it?
just
What I got?
golf teach you so much stuff, man.
I want to ask you about this before we go. I really want to ask you about the junior camp stuff too that you're doing. You put those on yourself?
So like that's my dad started those. So I'm 33. My dad must have started that when I was like 6. So it was a few guys at the golf course that I grew up by, Columbus Park, and they had kids that was getting into the game around the time that I was, my dad was getting me into the game. And so they started this like 27, 28 years ago. And it's been going every year for 27, 28 years. And so every summer, like it's like my way of paying back on that like super ground level. Like this how I started, you know what I mean? And this is where I am. So, I just like anything youth oriented, man, like I just try to show up for, because like in Chicago, it's just a lot of other things that are taking up kids' attention. And if you don't have positive male role models that could at least attest to where some of the opportunities are in the sport, then they're gonna completely miss it, because it's not like it's a golf course on every corner. It's not like the golf courses are easy to get to. It's not like it's publicized. It's not advocated for. And so I'm just like really hoping that with my success and traction in the sport, that we able to get more kids involved in golf from underrepresented communities, because it's just like this game will completely change your trajectory. Like any lifestyle you pick, add golf and see how much better that life turns out. Like it's just, I'm telling you, bro. Like it's just like any combination of educational background, like where you grew up, your family dynamics, single mother, single parent household, your socioeconomic status. Like if you grew up in extreme poverty, add golf to that life and see what happens. And it's crazy. Like I guarantee you, if you took 10 kids that grew up at the bottom of the bottom, and you gave 5 of them golf and told 5 of them to figure it out, those 5 kids with golf, like all 5 of them gonna do something with their life. All 5. Maybe 4 out of 5. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you just hit bad shot, whatever the case is. But I'm telling you, bro, like this game is powerful beyond ways that we can even articulate it, bro. Like, and it's not even just, and it's not transactional. It's not like go play golf so you can meet rich people and da 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 da. It's like, man, the game is going. If you really love the game of golf, it's gonna teach you so much about yourself. It's gonna teach you how to deal with other people and to read other people. Like, you just gonna, it's gonna make you so much more emotionally intelligent if you really open yourself up to getting better at golf. Like, you're gonna learn how you digest things. You're gonna learn how to relay information to other people. You're gonna learn about integrity. You're gonna learn about all these different things, and it's just gonna bode so well for you in any avenue that you pursue. I just want more kids to see golf, man. I just want them to see it and really understand what the opportunity is in it. You know, because this game, then, bro, it's done showed me so much stuff. Like I sit back and tell my dad some of the stuff that I'm seeing. You know what I mean? Like going to Pebble Beach, like going to abandoned dunes. Like you talking about like going on private jets to like golf took me skiing. You know what I mean? Like golf got me. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, man, like from the west side of Chicago, and I'm on some skis right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm on some skis in Aspen. Took a, you know what I mean? It's like all because of golf. You
That's
know,
wild, man.
I man, yeah, it's wild. So it's just like that junior golf camp that my dad run. Like I'm in there every year, and you know my schedule getting a little busier, so like I'm popping around a little bit, and I'm gonna try to make it. You know, as long as I'm in Chicago, I'm there, and you know it's a couple other junior golf camps and clinics and things. It's like, man, if y'all got stuff going on, and I'm in Chicago, I'll definitely make the time to be there. You know, I think that's the least thing that I could do to like pay the game back for like what it did for me, you know?
Well, I mean, yeah, doing it like your dad taking you there instead of letting you go play street ball every day. Not to say that anything bad would have happened if you'd just go hung out the basketball courts, but your your dad making you.
A lot of people that I met, no man, a lot of people that I met that, you know, because when I got older and I got my first car and I was playing basketball like in and around the west side, southwest side, south side, like a lot of the people that I knew, like they, like quite a few of them are dead now. Quite a few of them are locked up now. You know what I mean? And it's like, as much as I wanted to, like, you know, hate on my dad for like, man, you're not letting me make my own choices. It's like, man, like if he would have just like made my leash a little longer, like not saying that I would have made bad choices, but it's like, man, like I hate the thought of me choosing to do something different or like, you know, my dad throwing his hands up and saying, do what you want. You know what I mean? I hate the thought of that. That terrifies me. And I applaud him as a father for just sticking to his guns and being like, man, I am gonna keep you in this space. Because even if, you know, even if it would have turned out better, I don't know. You know, maybe it's some other talent that I missed out on that by not exploring those spaces. But like based on where I am now, like I wouldn't have my life have turned out no other way, and I wouldn't change nothing about the way I was brought up. You know.
Isn't it crazy that you know how hard it is for like I got we got four kids like it's difficult when they're pushing back on like what you're saying, you know, you're pushing back on your dad, you want to go play basketball, like you know what I mean? You're giving him that sort of attitude. It's really difficult from the parent side to stay strong when you know something's right and they need something versus what they want in
Yeah.
this situation. Like you know, you're not making them do this so that they'll be a professional golfer or that they'll be this or that, but you're teaching them a life lesson like, "Hey, I'm going to do the best I can as a parent for you in this situation because it's going to lead to a better life and you like understanding things a lot better and your life is going to be better if you just follow this path." And as a parent, that's your job. Like it's you're not there to be your friend. Like if he was your friend, you'd be out on the basketball court, but he wasn't your friend, he was your dad. And
Yeah.
that's a pretty cool story. I dig it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And
I dig it.
you know, I know parenting is hard. I know parenting is like, you know, I don't have no kids, so you know, I can't speak to it personally. But I just from being a child, I just know that both of my parents took that approach, and they were parents first. And I had to earn the right to be their friend over time, right? Like I feel like me and my dad didn't become friends until I was like like, mid-20s. You know what I mean? Like when it was like, man, you got your own money, you doing your own thing, you falling on your own face. Like, yeah, you see what I was talking about now, don't you? You know what I mean? And it was like my dad, he didn't do nothing out of laziness. Like he always put the time in too. You know what I mean? Like he made the time. He didn't just push me off on something and be like, go over here. He was like, no, like we gonna do this, and you gonna be with me, and I'm gonna be around you, and you gonna be around my friends. And a lot of his friends that I grew up with, like they were like like my godfathers and my uncles growing up, and I was just exposed to like an immense amount of wisdom from an early age. And it was like, how could that ever be wrong? You know what I'm saying? Like, not only was he keeping me safe, he was like expediting my like learning. Like I felt like I just approached life so much differently because I was around all of these like 40-something-year-old dudes that was telling me how to navigate people and things as well. And it's just like an environment like golf, man. It's just like it's priceless for a kid, especially ones that aren't exposed to a whole lot, man. Like it's absolutely priceless. So I think that any parent that's willing to like make sure that they're doing right by their kids, but actually like spend the time with them too. You know what I mean? Like don't just force them to do something. Really take the time and be there. Like if I'm gonna make you do this, I'm gonna sit in there and do it with you type stuff. You know what I mean? I think that's what really made the difference for me. I knew that my dad wasn't being lazy. Like you know what I mean? I know that he was really trying to like help me.
Yeah, it's such a cool story, man. I dig it, Roger. This has been rad, man. Thank you for being on. This is like tell everybody I got your Instagram handle there and stuff like that, but tell everybody where they can go and support you and what you're doing and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, you can just find me on Instagram. I keep saying I'm gonna start a YouTube. I need some more time and bandwidth to do something
Nah,
like that. But
you got
yeah,
it.
I'm
You
just
got
on
to start it.
Instagram.
You got to start it. I'm watching. I'm watching.
Yeah, yeah. But no, so like I'm just on Instagram, Roger_Steele. And then if you want to support, just go buy some trap golf stuff, buy some Adidas stuff, buy some Callaway stuff, and tell them I sent you. You know what I mean? Because that's gonna help me keep growing in the game a little bit. But no, man, I just appreciate everybody's support and everybody that messaged me on Instagram and like hit me up. Like I appreciate y'all so much, like way more than y'all know. And it's just been dope getting to know new people. Like golf made this possible, and I'm appreciative of that, man.
Right on, man. Well, I'm appreciative you came on the show, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro.